Heaven, in many religions, the abode of God or the gods, as well as of angels, deified humans, the blessed dead, and other celestial beings. It is often conceived as an expanse that overarches the earth, stretching overhead like a canopy, dome, or vault and encompassing the sky and upper atmosphere, the sun, moon, and stars, and the transcendent realm beyond. In most cultures, heaven is synonymous with order. It contains the blueprints for creation, the mandate by which earthly rulers govern, and the standards by which to measure beauty, goodness, and truth. In religious thought and poetic fancy, heaven is not only a place but also a state of being. As such, it is characterized negatively as freedom from hunger, thirst, pain, deprivation, disease, ignorance, and strife, and positively as complete contentment, perfect knowledge, everlasting rest, ineffable peace, communion with God, and rapturous joy. Heaven is also understood as the reward for a life well lived, the fulfillment of the heart's deepest desire, and the ultimate reference point for all human striving and hope. In ancient cosmologies, heaven is situated in the extreme west or east, on a faraway island or mountaintop, or in astral realms. Plurality and even redundancy is the rule, as multiple heavens overlap with earthly paradises and astronomical spheres. Many myths of the origin of heaven recount that, in the beginning, heaven and earth were closely wedded. The present condition of estrangement, marked by the withdrawal of the gods and by suffering, sign, and death, is the result of a catastrophic event, for which human ancestors or rival, heavenly powers are to blame. A desire to recapture lost intimacy with heaven suffuses the literature of the world's religions, but there is enormous variety in how different traditions conceive of the longed-for realization of human hopes. Nature worship, heaven and earth as sacred spaces, forces, or processes. World mythology abounds in stories of attempts to invade heaven, such as the flight of Icarus, the Hindu legend of the conquest of heaven by the Asura demon king Bali, and countless variations on the story of Babel, a man-made tower reaching to heaven. Genesis 11:1-9. Such attempts almost always come to a bad end. Shamans, prophets, kings, and visionaries may visit heaven by way of a dream, trance, or extraordinary summons, but the usual route is by death, such as bridges that narrow to a razor's edge, rivers filled with waters of death, and hostile powers who seek to block the soul's ascent. All such ideals are open to moral and psychological interpretation. In world literature, the drama of the perilous journey to heaven has appeared in many forms, including epic, allegory, satire, science fiction, and fantasy. Notable examples are Dante's masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, early 14th century, the 16th century, Chinese comic novel Shuji, The Journey to the West, John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress 1678, Mark Twain's extract from Captain Stormfield's Visit to Heaven, 1909, and C.S. Lewis's Perelandra 1943. Earning a place in heaven usually requires meritorious activity, such as almsgiving, caring for the sick, performing sacrifices or other sacramental rites pleasing to the heavenly powers, exhibiting heroic virtue as a warrior, ascetic, or martyr, or enduring great suffering. Some traditions believe that merit can be transferred by means of pious actions, performed on behalf of the dead. Yet many take the view that heaven is attainable only as the free gift of a divine being. Adherents of Pure Land Buddhism, for example, rely upon the vow of Amitabha Buddha to bring to Sukhavati the Pure Land, or Western Paradise, all who sincerely call upon his name. The Lutheran trusts in justification by faith alone, and popular piety in general looks to the protection of powerful heavenly patrons. Descriptions of heaven vie for superlatives, for here everything must be the best imaginable, from the delectable boar that feeds the crowds of Valhalla, the heavenly abode in Norse mythology, boiled every day and coming alive again every evening, to the perfumed paradise extolled by the Buddhist Sukhavati Vyuha Sutras, which coruscates with precious stones, peacocks, parasols, and lotus blossoms, never knowing extremes of climate nor discord of any kind. Heaven may be characterized as a garden nature perfected, or a city society perfected, or both at once. It may be a realm of mystical tranquility or of heightened activity. In broad strokes, the imagery is universal, with light being the privileged symbol. Yet the details are often culture-specific, with the occupations most valued by a given society receiving pride of place, as in the hunters' paradises of Australian Aboriginal mythology, the Platonic heaven for contemplatives, the bureaucratic heavens of Imperial China, and the Rabbinic Heavenly Academy. Heaven in world religions and history. Ancient Mesopotamia, Creation myths of ancient Mesopotamia typically begin with the separation of heaven and earth, giving rise to a three-story universe that includes heaven above, earth in the middle, and the underworld below. The high gods reign in the heavens as an assembly or council. Earth is the realm of mortal humans, whose purpose is to serve the gods by providing them with sacred dwellings, food, and tribute. It is also populated by minor gods and demons who play a role in magic. At death, human beings descend to the underworld, a dreary land of no return. Only a few exceptional human heroes are permitted to enter heaven. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a cycle of Sumerian and Akkadian legends about the king of the Mesopotamian city-state work, Gilgamesh searches unsuccessfully for immortality, only to have the sober truth of human mortality brought home. When the gods created mankind, death for mankind they allotted, life in their own hands retaining. Good relations with heaven were nonetheless considered vital to the well-being of the living. The Gilgamesh epic suggests that the social order of Uruk was threatened not only by Gilgamesh's unrealistic ambition to conquer death but also by his unwillingness to enter into sacred marriage with the goddess Ishtar Sumerian, Inanna, whose temple was the center of civic and cultic life. Concern for good relations with heaven is reflected as well in the massive body of Mesopotamian texts devoted to celestial observation, astronomical theory, and astrological lore, all of which serve to discern and cope with the perceived influence of heaven on human affairs. Egyptian Book of the Dead, Anubis, Egyptian Book of the Dead, Anubis weighing the soul of the scribe Ani. From the Egyptian Book of the Dead, c. 1275 BC, an even greater emphasis on the ruler's role as guarantor of right relations with heaven characterized ancient Egyptian civilization throughout its 3,000-year history. The king shared with the sun god Re and the sky god Horus responsibility for defending order against chaos, and he was granted the privilege of enjoying renewable life as part of the great cosmic circuit. That this renewable life depended on massive cultic support is evident from monumental tombs, grave goods, and elaborate mortuary rituals. Heaven was visualized mythically as the divine cow on whose back the sun god withdrew from earth, as the falcon-headed god Horus whose glittering eyes formed the sun and moon, or as the goddess Nut arching over the earth. A happy afterlife, however, could take place in any number of locations: in the fertile field of reeds, as a passenger in the solar bark, in the extreme west or east, or among the circumpolar stars. The pyramid texts envision a happy afterlife for royalty alone. The dead king is identified with Osiris as well as with the triumphant rising sun. The coffin texts and the Book of the Dead, in which the afterlife is to some degree democratized, identify all the deceased with Osiris in his capacity as judge and ruler of the underworld. Judaism, true to its Middle Eastern origins, ancient Judaism at first insisted on the separateness of heaven and earth, and had little to say about the prospect of a heavenly afterlife. The heavens are the Lord's heavens, but the earth he has given to human beings. Psalm 115-16, heaven in Hebrew. The plural Emayim was a vast realm above the earth, supported by a hard firmament of dazzling precious stone, which kept the upper waters from mingling with the waters beneath. The sun, moon, and stars were set in the firmament, and windows could open to let down rain, snow, hail, or dew from the celestial storehouses. God, the maker of heaven and earth, was enthroned in the highest reach of heaven. From there he intervened in the affairs of his creatures and revealed through Moses and the prophets his sovereignty, providential care, and cultic and moral demands. Surrounding the divine throne was a heavenly host of solar, astral, and angelic beings. These celestial beings shared many attributes with the gods and goddesses of Canaanite and Mesopotamian polytheism, but the emerging monotheism of the Hebrew scriptures demanded exclusive commitment to one God, referred to as the Lord, to whom all powers in heaven and on earth were subject. In ancient Judaism, as in other Middle Eastern religions of the period, the cosmos had a three-story structure. God dwelt in heaven and was also present in the Temple of Jerusalem. His palace on earth, the underworld Hebrew, Sheol, to which human beings were consigned at death, was seemingly outside God's jurisdiction. This picture changed dramatically, however, in response to the Babylonian exile and the destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE, as the conviction began to take hold that there must be no limit to God's power to vindicate his people even after death. During the post-exilic period, the experience of foreign rule intensified longing for future deliverance, encouraged speculation influenced by Persian and Greco-Roman models of cosmology, angelology, and immortality. and produced martyrs whose claim on a heavenly afterlife seemed particularly strong. Thus the Book of Daniel, considered the latest composition in the Hebrew Bible, contains this prophecy. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. 12:2-3. While belief in a heavenly afterlife became widespread in the Hellenistic age, 323-30 BCE, no single model predominated, but rather a profusion of images and schemes, including resurrection of the dead, immortality of the soul, and transformation into an angel or star. Visionary journeys through the heavens, conceived as a hierarchy of spheres, became a staple of apocalyptic literature, and Jewish mystics produced a vast theosophical lore concerning heavenly palaces, angelic powers, and the dimensions of God's body. Traces of this heaven mysticism can still be found in the Jewish prayer book Siddur, classical rabbinic Judaism, which emerged after the destruction of the Second Temple 70 CE, and established the main lines on which Jewish eschatology would develop, admitted a plurality of images for heaven. The expression Olam Haba, the world to come, refers both to the Messianic age and to the heavenly estate to which the righteous ascend at death. After death, righteous souls await the resurrection in the heavenly Garden of Eden or hidden under the divine throne. Jewish liturgy piles praise upon praise in exaltation of the name and kingship of God, who rides the highest heavens, blesses his people eternally, judges, redeems, and maintains his faith to those asleep in the dust. The Sabbath is understood to be a preview of heaven, anticipating the wedding feast at the end of time, when the work of creation will be complete and the captivity of Zion will end. Christianity began as one of many Jewish, apocalyptic and reform movements active in Palestine in the 1st century CE. These groups shared an intense conviction that the new heavens and new earth, prophesied by Isaiah 65-17, were close at hand. They believed that history would soon find its consummation in a world perfected, when the nations would be judged, the elect redeemed, and Israel restored. Jewish and Christian conceptions of heaven developed side by side, drawing from shared biblical and Greco-Roman sources. The liturgy of temple, synagogue, and Eucharistic service informed images of heaven, for in worship the community symbolically ascends to the heavenly Jerusalem, a realm of perpetual adoration and intercession for the needs of the world, where angels never cease to sing holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, Isaiah 6-3. Christians believe that the estrangement between heaven and earth ended with the incarnation, passion, resurrection, and ascension of Christ. In Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself. To Corinthians 5:19, sharing in Christ's deathless divine life are the members of his mystical body. The Church, Greek, ekklesia, which is the communion of saints both living and dead. The Virgin Mary, regarded as Queen of Heaven, tirelessly intercedes for the faithful, including sinners who seek her protection. Traditional Christian theology teaches that communion with God is the chief end for which human beings were made, and that those who die in a state of grace are immediately or after a period of purification admitted to the bliss of heaven, where they become like God. 1 John 3-2. See God face to face. 1 Corinthians 13:12. And see all things in God. With the resurrection of the dead, beatitude will embrace the whole person, body, soul, and spirit. The social dimension of this beatitude is expressed in the last book of the New Testament, who dwells in their midst, in a city of bejeweled splendor. 21-22. Worship, fellowship, and creative pursuits all form part of the composite Christian picture of heaven, but the emphasis on domestic happiness and never-ending spiritual progress in heaven is largely a modern innovation. Islam, the Caribbean, which according to Islamic tradition has its original in heaven, frequently calls attention to the heavens as a sign of God's sovereignty, justice, and mercy. When the earth was just formed and the sky a mere vapor, God commanded them to join together, and they willingly submitted. Surah 41-11-12. God then completed his creation by forming the sky into 7 firmaments, adorning the lower firmament with lights, and assigning to everything its just measure. The 7 heavens and the earth perpetually celebrate God's praise. Surah 17:44, and by their majestic design provide evidence that God indeed has the power to raise the dead and to judge them on the last day. Before the resurrection, the souls of the dead are thought to dwell in an intermediate state, experiencing a preview of their future condition of misery or bliss. On the day of judgment, heaven will be split asunder, the mountains will crumble to dust, the earth will give up its dead, and each person will undergo a final test. The righteous, with faces beaming, will pass the test easily, passing through hell with ease. In gardens of bliss they will recline on royal couches, clothed in fine silk and shaded by fruit trees of every description. Immortal youths will serve them cool drinks and delicacies, and ever-virgin companions with lustrous eyes will join them. They will also be reunited with their faithful offspring, and peace will reign. Being in God's presence is the chief delight of paradise, according to Muslim philosophers and mystics, and the greater one's degree of blessedness. The closer one will be to God. Accounts of the Prophet Muhammad's ascent through the seven heavens to the very throne of God are taken as revealing his uniquely favored status. Although Sufis, Islamic mystics, speak of an ecstatic annihilation fan in the presence of God, the emphasis within mainstream Islamic traditions on God's transcendence has discouraged the development of eschatology focusing on divinization or beatific union with God. Hinduism. In Hinduism, a comparatively modern term that covers manifold religious practices and worldviews of the peoples of South Asia, heaven is the perennial object of myth, ritual practice, and philosophical speculation. The most ancient religious texts, the Vedas 1500 to 1200 BC, depict heaven as the domain of sky gods such as Indra, the thunder god, Surya, the sun, Agni, the sacrificial fire, Varuna, the overseer of cosmic order, and Yama, the first human to die. Ritual sacrifice was deemed essential for world maintenance, and funeral rites ensured that the spirit of the deceased would ascend to the world of the fathers on high. Rebirth in heaven depended upon having male householder descendants to sponsor the necessary rites. During the period of the early Upanishads, 800 to 500 BC, a group of itinerant sages turned from the sacrificial ritualism of Vedic tradition to develop the rudiments of classical Hindu soteriology, the theological doctrine of salvation. These sages taught that the entire phenomenal world is caught up in an endless cycle of birth and death, samsara, propelled by desire. A person's station in life is determined by actions performed in previous lives, karma. To be reborn in heaven, svarga, is pleasant but impermanent. Even the gods must eventually die. The ultimate goal is to escape this perishing life and attain union with the infinite spirit. Brahman, the Upanishadic path of liberation, required practicing spiritual disciplines beyond the capacity of ordinary householders. But by the beginning of the second millennium, the mystical asceticism of the Upanishads had been absorbed into the great stream of devotional Hinduism. The result was the appearance of new forms of religious literature, such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas, in which salvation takes the form of personal union with the divine, thus opening a broad way to heaven, or rather, to the heaven beyond all heavens, to those who entrust themselves to the protection of a deity. Buddhism. Buddhism began in the early 5th century BCE in northeast India as a renunciant movement seeking liberation from samsara through knowledge and spiritual discipline. The Buddha Gautama, the founder of the religion, is the paradigm of an enlightened being who has entered parinibbana, complete nibbana, Sanskrit nirvana, the state in which the causes of all future existence have been eliminated. Classical Buddhist cosmology describes 6 realms of rebirth within an incalculably vast system of worlds and eons. One may be reborn as an animal, a human, a hungry ghost, a demigod, a denizen of one of the horrific hell realms, or a god in one of the pleasurable heaven realms. Allah.
Thanks for watching this video till the end. If it's your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting content around the world. Please guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. If you believe God is real, please subscribe, like and comment. If you believe heaven is real, please subscribe, like and comment. See you to the next video. Thanks for watching this video. If it's your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting content around the world. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. See you to the next video. Please guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. See you to the next video. Please, if it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. If you believe God is real, please subscribe. If you believe heaven is real, please subscribe, comment, and share. See you to the next video. We love you so much. If it's your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you to the next video.